Calling this meeting to order of the Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee. It's 9 o'clock on Thursday, April 1st. Today, have we complied with the Freedom of Information Act?
Yes, sir, we have.
Would you please call the roll?
Ms. Martin? Mr. Berghausen?
Present.
Mr. Fluker?
Present.
Mr. Arnold? Mr. Farrell?
Present.
Mr. Thomas?
Present.
Mr. Brown? Thank you, Mr. Fluker.
Okay, it appears that 4 of the 7 members are present, therefore we have a quorum to begin business. Before you is the agenda that was sent out previously. Zendaya, does the staff have any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, staff does not have any changes at this time.
Committee members, do you have any changes to be made to the agenda? If none, please reply with approved or disapproved to the agenda presented. May I have a motion? Oh, excuse me, at this time. Let's please call the roll again as to the approval or disapproval of the agenda. Zendaya?
I will need a motion first, and then we'll do the roll call.
I'm sorry. Somebody would like to move to approve the agenda?
Jim, I'll move to approve the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Berghausen, any second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Thomas, we do have a motion and a second. Zendaya, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Berghausen?
Approve.
Mr. Fluker?
Approved?
Mr. Farrell?
Approved.
Mr. Thomas?
Approved.
Thank you.
Before the committee is a set of draft minutes from the November 5, 2020 meeting of the advisory committee. Do we have any changes to the minutes as presented? Anybody?
No, I would move approval.
All right, I have a motion for approval of the minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. Thomas. All right, Zendaya, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Mr. Berghausen?
Approve.
Mr. Fluker?
Approved?
Mr. Farrell? Mr. Farrell? I believe you're on mute.
I'm sorry, approve.
Thank you. And Mr. Thomas?
Approved.
Thank you.
Zendaya, do we have any citizen comments?
Yes, Mr. Vice Chairman, public comments concerning today's agenda items were to be submitted electronically via the town's open town hall portal. The public comment period closed yesterday at 4:30. At the conclusion of the open town hall, there were no comments. However, one citizen did sign up to speak before the committee today. Mr. Vice Chairman, at this time, we have one caller holding for public comment.
Okay. Would you please make that caller available to us at this time?
Mr. Skip Hoagland?
Yes. Good morning. ATAX, Mr. Ames, and Mr. Lennox. Let's say you both handed me $60 million plus of your own money over the last 30 years without accounting, oversight, or proven returns, and worse, then discovered I used it for my own personal profit by laundering, committing tax violations, tax evasion, and then you asked me for an explanation, and I told you that it's none of your business, it's my secret sauce. How would you react? Why did you allow Bill Miles, Hilton Head Chamber, to tell you this? What I want to know is, why do you keep handing millions every year to Bill Miles, who told you none of your business? Then you and banker Tom Lennox draft a fraudulent DMO 5-year contract for Bill Miles to sign. Lennox and Ames, how much longer do you think South Carolina Treasury will keep handing you and the town of Hilton Head billions to issue for this illegal secret use? How much longer do you think South Carolina Treasury, PERC, South Carolina DOR, IRS, and FBI will allow zero oversight, zero accountability on these tens of millions of illegally misused tax funds? how much longer do you think both town of Hilton Head officials, the private nonprofit Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber, will be allowed to violate South Carolina and federal laws that include FOIA, procurement, South Carolina Nonprofit Corporation Act, constitutional laws issuing public money for private use, and money laundering, fraud, tax evasion, IRS 501-C6 nonprofit laws, IRS UBIT violations, bid rigging, bribery, and whatever else I missed? ATAX, Mr. Lennox, Mr. Ames, you all, as elected officials, have not only violated your campaign promises to approve, spend, and protect the public tax monies like your own money, but much worse, you have knowingly schemed this fraudulent DMO contract with crooked chamber Burr Foreman lawyers David Tigas, Walter Nestor, and highly corrupted town lawyers Terry Finger, Josh Gruber, and Curtis Coltrane, and town managers Steve Riley, Mark Orlando, and Gruber. You both, along with these shyster lawyers and town managers, must be fully investigated, then handcuffed, removed from public service, and the lawyers disbarred. Mr. Ames and Mr. Lennox, you deny, and this ATAX committee, do you deny my facts on all of this? Every one of you who are allowing this and approving this are a disgrace and an embarrassment to this community. I hope you understand that. And I hope you understand that this is going to end. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that, well, at least Mr. Brown has now joined the meeting. And that's for the record purposes. And for a second there, I saw Mr. Arnold. He appeared to have been on the meeting and then disappeared. So that's for record purposes only, that those members have joined the meeting. We are now at agenda item number 7. We have no unfinished business, so we'll move on to new business at this time. Mr. Brown, do you have anything you wish to say at this time?
No, thank you so much, Jim, for taking the reins. Unfortunately, I was having some technical difficulties there. I see Mr. Arnold's on again, and why don't you go ahead and start with new business, please?
All right. The new business before the committee today is a hearing involving the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce Visitors and Convention Bureau's proposal of the 2021-22 marketing plan and budget for their expenditures allowed under the 30% allocation of the state accommodations tax funds for advising and promotion of tourism. Today, I believe we have before the committee, Ms. Ariana Pernice, who is the Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce. Oh, there she is. Okay, would you like to go ahead and make your presentation?
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me this morning. My name is Ariana Pernice, as Mr. Fluker had mentioned, and I am the Vice President of the Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce Visitor and Convention Bureau. This morning, I'm excited to bring forward our proposal for fiscal year 22 marketing plan. And if you will allow me, I'd love to share my screen and dive into that presentation. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
And just to check, everyone's seeing my screen?
Yes.
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 Wonderful. Again, thank you. We're here to present the fiscal year 22 destination marketing plan for Hilton Head Island. I thought it was important, noting that there are some new members of the ATAX committee, to start with just a grounding and a foundational background on who we are as an organization. The Hilton Head Island Bluffton Chamber of Commerce is also, we as a Visitor and Convention Bureau sit within the Chamber of Commerce. We are driven by a vision and mission. That vision as an organization is to a welcoming world-class community, embracing nature, culture, and economic vibrancy for residents and visitors. Our mission on a daily basis is to stimulate the regional economy while enhancing the quality of life for all. The role of the Destination Marketing Organization, articulated by our governing entity, Destinations International, is that we are charged with representing the destination and helping the long-term development of communities through a travel and tourism strategy. The funding flow, I thought this was an easy graphic for us to walk through that funding piece that we're talking about today. We speak about a family traveling to Hilton Head Island on vacation. They choose to stay in a home, a villa, or a hotel, which includes an 11% tax per night. That tax, at 11%, is collected and is broken out the following way: 5% state, 4% local, 2% state accommodation. Of that 2%, the designated marketing organization, which is our organization, receives 30% of that. The governance for our organization as a whole is as well-rounded. We have several entities and touch points that do help guide us on a daily basis, and oversight is given through our board of directors, our marketing council, which is formed of tourism professionals from across the destination in every sector, an annual independent audit. There is also the state oversight of the state tourism. Then there's a Turk board. We have the town council and the ATAX committee, who I'm presenting to today, and then our accrediting body, which is Destinations International. We've always looked to have our foundation really based in research and in partnership with the town, and then guiding those efforts of what we do and what we chart towards, not only on an annual basis, but that long-term, long lens look on how we best can ensure tourism for this destination. So generally we're speaking about that 1-year marketing plan, but I thought for the group's understanding and for that opportunity to talk a little deeper about the oversight that we have for tourism, it really starts with that longer lens of a destination management plan. As a developed community, that destination management plan helps guide us over a 10-year period, ensuring the foundation of tourism, not only for today, but how we will progress with tourism, our main economic driver for this destination for the next 10 years. That effort in partnership with the town, ensuring that we have synergies that ladder back into all those initiatives that the town and community has put forward, we feel are tied into that destination management plan. And the overarching lens for our foundation is that we're community focused first when it comes to tourism, and that we want to ensure the destination going forward so we can ensure the quality of life here for the residents now and for the future. After the 10-year plan, we are then bound by our strategic plan. That strategic plan is an internal plan for us on a 3-year basis and cycle. We will talk a little bit more about that a little later. That 3-year plan was revisited this year after going through the pandemic, and I think there's some great tools in there as well. And having that 10-year lens, the 3-year lens, really ladders us into that marketing plan, which is what we're presenting today. There's a lot of thought and effort that goes into each and every goal and tactic. But we'd be remiss if we did not mention the global pandemic and COVID-19 and the impact that it not only had on travel and tourism in general, but in also as to our state and to our local economy. When you take a look on the national level, visitor spending was down year over year by 42%. There was a decrease in number of travel supported jobs by 34%. Hotel occupancy across the U.S. Was down 33% to the previous year. Let's get a little closer. Let's talk about South Carolina as a state. 35% down in domestic international spend, 28% down in federal and state and local tax receipts. But then when you really hone in on the local piece of it, and these are numbers provided again through multiple touch points of research that we have, down 8.5% in ATAX and H-tax collections year over year, down 8.6% in visitor spending year over year, and down 2.9% in total numbers of visitors. So the immediate impact of the pandemic was significant. However, when we look at opportunities as we move forward there is some silver linings here in terms of intent and awareness and opportunity for the future. So we gauge that by our virtual front door, which would be our website, hiltonheadisland.org. That was up 14.3% year over year. Handshakes out to partners. So when we bring those visitors in, or the potential visitors into that virtual front door, which is the website, are we taking the opportunity to shake, a partner's hand with that visitor? And that was up 66.1%. So that's a really great sign. And then there was a 7.3% increase across all social media channels. It's an interesting piece when we walk through the pandemic and look back on some of the learnings. The opportunity really showed that, in short, we have really been engaging with our consumers, though they might not have been able to travel, they were interested. And so as different things ebb and flow at different states and different comfort levels personally, regardless, there's interest, and regardless, we've seen that they are paying attention to our brand. Some have made that trip here, but others are going to in the near future, and these are all signs that that is going to happen soon. But while we were going through March through the end of the year, we thought as an organization it was imperative to ensure that we were ready, that we were prepared, and that there was a plan to ensure the safety of our workforce, our residents, as well as our visitors. The Chamber acted quickly and swiftly and worked with our community and town partners to ensure the path forward readiness plan. That plan was brought together, represented by 9 committees that were led by many individuals that within our community, overseeing different sectors, which included, as you can see, small business, retail, home and villa, early childhood, restaurants, so on and so forth. These organizations came forward and created what are the documents that ensured that safety protocol was in place, that they were able to take that pledge and ensure the safety at all levels and all touch points. That program was then promoted through the Path Forward initiative and brought not only comfort to our residents and to our workforce, to our visitors, but it also was recognized nationally. And stemming from that, there were several other initiatives that took place at the local level, from ensuring our local businesses, ensuring our partners and our community on it every single day. There was a strong initiative called Help for Hope. It fed 20,000 people and distributed over 250,000 to restaurants, and that was in partnership with the Watterson Family Foundation and the Community Foundation of the Low Country. Knowing that our visitors and our community still wanted to be able to enjoy some of the offerings at our restaurants and support local restaurants, we had the Takeout Blitz campaign. So we created that platform where both residents and visitors could access where people had takeout options or dining options that were outside as that progressed and was available. There was also several mask distributions with nearly 3,000 free reusable masks to visitors and residents at grocery stores, resorts, and farmers markets. In addition, we also have been holding our weekly COVID-19 teletown hall calls. And when you see that, it has been really an opportunity on a weekly basis, now going to bi-weekly, to engage our community and beyond, to let them know real-time updates and information that was pertinent to them for their next steps or decisions that they were making. There was many staff members here on a daily basis reaching out to our over 600 members and beyond to ensure what they needed from us to help further their recovery, or if they had questions or needed direction in any way. Obviously, we're here as a frontline business, and that was staffed, and someone was there answering the phone calls and being willing to answer any and all questions that came regarding the safety of the destination. And any other questions that might have come from just the 2020 year as a whole. We had and we continue to share on social media as well as email communications to keep our members informed and our community informed. And obviously we're surveying and tracking and doing the research just to understand the sentiment of not only the local businesses, but also just the industry as a whole, as well as our consumers. There's been over 115 Zoom calls, and those varied from not just the teletown halls, but any information regarding the CARES Act, PPP, SBA loans. We wanted to be here and being able to reach out to our partners and to our community to offer this support. And we are always in constant contact with our local, state, and federal legislators to advocate for our businesses. As we talked about, we had the path forward and the taking the pledge, which was so important from just really ensuring that visitors, community, and workforce were safe. But we also wanted to understand that the visitor, when they were here, when they were traveling to this destination, that they understood there was a responsibility on that side as well. So we launched the Promise. And the Promise campaign not only spoke to the importance of our environment and protecting our natural resources, but it also asked them to wear a mask, and to stay home or cover up if they were coughing, things of that nature. So very successful campaigns, and we continue to chart those as we move through the pandemic. In addition to some of those boots on the ground initiatives that you had just seen in those slides, we continue to chart forward with information in the out market. There was a strategic effort in place, really flexing our marketing efforts. We went from having kind of that global perspective, but in the midst of the early parts of the pandemic, we really honed in our marketing and took that to more of a drive market perspective with some short haul flight routes included in that. And from there, we were able to really target into destinations that were able to travel from a drive perspective or short haul perspective. We were able to tweak and adjust our marketing throughout the year to really accommodate where we were as a country and also as a destination in regards to the pandemic. We found ourselves working very closely with our community and event partners as they flex their marketing and their initiatives. We supported them. One that comes to mind is the Gullah Celebration. They did a wonderful job flexing in terms of keeping their time frame of that late January, early the month of February initiative, and really going out to support them and promoting them when they had their efforts in place. And we continue to work closely with the arts community and pushing their 2 videos that we have worked in partnership with Jen McEwen on, and so those are out in the marketplace. So again, anywhere we understood that the consumer was really online and in multiple places online, we wanted to make sure that they had our brand in front of them, and we wanted to be able to ensure that they saw firsthand that it was our community coming together through all these great initiatives and being so flexible and nimble to promote and push their initiatives, that we were able to support that through our channels as well. So it was a great piece to see. So not only were we focused in on home to ensure that the safety was there for our residents, workforce, and the visitors that were here, but we wanted to ensure that the brand was out in the out market as well, being promoted and pushed to those that were still digesting the content, looking for our brand. They were able to experience it from afar. So when we look back at the numbers of 2020, a year in review, we have the website visits, social media, public relations, hotel, home, and villa. And as you can see, we had significant numbers when it came to website visits. Our consumer is engaged. They love our brand. The opportunity there is for us to stay engaged with them. As we were relevant and in front of them during 2020, it's never been more important to stay in front of them as other destinations open up. And we need to ensure that we're really pumping that marketing initiative and that branding out there as more choices are going to be available to consumers. So we want to continue to see the momentum in these numbers and use these as a basis as we move forward. We were still recognized in many platforms, as you can see here, through Condé Nast Traveler, Southern Living, Convention South, which is a meetings and groups platform, but more importantly, our industry awards here with the Magellan Awards and the HSMAI Adrian Awards. And the HSMAI one here, as you can see, was awarded to us for best practice for the work that was done on the islands, Hilton Head Island's Path Forward recovery. And that was a really a special one as we really hold that close as a community award in partnership that we work so closely with so many of you here. So as we chart forward into the fiscal year 22, we have that shared vision for the future of tourism. As a community, we come together and push this destination and all the unique opportunities that come from it and those experiences that we talk about every single day. So it's exciting as we chart forward and have a great foundation of strong numbers and interest going into this new fiscal year. Our goals, as they are laid out in front of you, there's 6 here. We spent a better half of the first half of 21 working closely with our marketing council, and again, that cross section of representation from across the travel and tourism industry to help carve these goals and really hone in on how we were going to look at this coming fiscal year. We're excited to put these forward to you and to work in partnership with our community and our businesses to ensure these numbers going forward. The first one that you can see here on the wheel is develop and implement a resident and visitor satisfaction survey. This is our commitment and our opportunity to work closely with the community as well as our visitors to understand experiences and opportunities in front of us. So that was put as our number 1, and that's a new goal for us this year. And then you can see we also broke out individually our hotel and our home and villa occupancy goals. Important as we start to build back that meetings and group opportunity for the destination, a very important segment of our business. There is a comprehensive strategy against that, and we look forward to bringing that to fruition as not only the destination is ready to receive them, but the U.S. is ready to travel for business again as well. So we'll be on the forefront of that. And then ensuring that our partners have great cooperative efforts for growing our funding with them, and then increase our website sessions that we just spoke about. The importance of continuing that momentum when it comes to website and our social media. That is, again, our virtual front door, that first touch point with our visitors or potential visitors. And so we want to maintain that momentum as we move forward into the new fiscal year. These goals, as we looked closely at what we had laid out in the prior fiscal year, were again looked at, scrutinized, and discussed at length in terms of how we arrived at these percentages. So how did we get there? Those percentages were looked at if there was a basis of prior year or several prior years that we could look at to formulate a percentage that made sense. Those were all taken into consideration. So research is what what we're bound by, and also looking at an opportunity as we move forward to push ourselves into these new into 22. So with those goals set forward, how will we achieve that? Again, we spoke to being nimble and flexible as we walk forward in the new fiscal year, understanding that we're coming on through the other side of a pandemic, and that we've had to adjust our markets that we're in, and we will continue to remain nimble and flexible as we go after different markets that are open or starting to emerge out of quarantine or different variations of the pandemic. But our leisure traveler focus will not change. Though we might, really ebb and flow with that radius, who we go after is here in front of you. It skews a bit more female, 150,000 affluent traveler, undergraduate degree or higher at 59%. They have a propensity to travel, and they stay for an average of 7 nights. We're looking for that, not only that affluent traveler, those that are really multi-gen. We also want to talk about the next gen, Gen X and millennial travelers. We not only want to ensure who we know come to this destination, we want to ensure that there's also that funnel of new travelers coming in. And with all the work that we've done over this past year and previous years, we want to ensure that funnel and really taking into consideration that we need to ensure that new people are looking at us. We really had that opportunity this past year. New people had experienced Hilton Head Island for the first time, and that was a great opportunity for us to engage and connect and to showcase this destination for all that it has to offer. And we want to continue that conversation and hopefully have them back. And this is that opportunity as we move forward and how we will target them. And things that we will go after in terms of our marketing and advertising in terms of pushing that message are beach, natural beauty and excursions, culinary, biking, golf and tennis, and arts, history, and culture. So again, as we talk about this destination, it's not necessarily the events themselves in terms of the actual golf, but it's the experiences and the community that support these. And we want to really bring to life those stories, connect that community of visitors to the destination. And really the best opportunity is when they really do feel truly connected to the destination and part of this community as an extension. And so through showcasing those individuals and those community attributes, we will be able to achieve that. So when we're outreaching into those markets and we're looking for that leisure travel that we spoke to a couple slides, and we're talking about those experiences and really highlighting those community members that really touch upon those and bringing our best to life in terms of our stories. We're starting higher in that funnel, and this is a good representation of how that happens. So we want to create that demand, we want to create that interest, and so we bring those visitors or potential visitors at the top of the funnel, and then we bring them down through. When we bring them down through, we want to make sure they're qualified, and then as they're qualified, they're coming through, there's intent, and then there's conversion. That conversion for us is that handshake out to the partner, right? We want to ensure that when they're coming in and they're seeing all the great opportunities here and they're reading our stories and they're digesting that content, they're then shaking that hand of our partners here in the community, and they're extending that research and that experience, and hopefully making their way here to the island. That's our end goal. So as we've talked about in the past, but never more important as we've come out of 2020 into fiscal year 22, we like to present this visual to say it isn't one laser, effort into one area of marketing and public relations and technology. It has to all work together. We thought this gear was a really nice representation of that. Everything has to be firing and working in partnership and in sync together to ensure that we're top of mind. It becomes a really noisy environment out in when we're looking for visitors, and you put that marketing out there. We want to ensure that we're top of mind, but to do so, we need to be relevant. We need to be seen, and those efforts take multiple efforts. And so we have to ensure, especially today, when our consumers and potential visitors are digesting content on multiple platforms at one time. They might be reading it on a phone, they might be seeing a digital ad somewhere, there might be a subscription base somewhere that they're reading. So we have to make sure that we're relevant in all those places. And so this gear really represents all of those efforts, and we have to be tech forward, we have to be really bound by research, but we have to also make sure that we're relevant, and those things are here and represented. So when we take a dive deeper into those goals, the tactics that will help us achieve that, and we took them all 6 and really tried to, for your understanding, put forward the tactics that we would use to ensure those 6 goals. And as we talked about, the number 1 goal, develop and implement the resident and visitor satisfaction survey. This is from the resident standpoint, will be a new initiative for us. We do produce a visitor profile study regularly for the destination and for the community, and it helps funnel into all of our additional research and efforts. But this will be, understanding it from both sides. So we put this as a new opportunity. And so we're working closely with some of our research specialists to ensure that for this coming fiscal year reporting. Again, working very closely with our hotel partners to understand what they're seeing in their forecast, what they're seeing on their books. We felt confident in holding hands with grow hotel occupancy by 10% and RevPAR by 12%. And again, this is a representation of all hotel keys on the island, not just full service, not just focus service, but every hotel property on the island is represented within these goals. And so when we looked at this, we used our research, we used our STAR report, and we looked back and we talked closely with our hoteliers and said, based on history, based on what we know has happened, taking into consideration 2020 and what forecasts are showing us in 22 and beyond, we were confident in the numbers set forth. So to ensure these percentages and that they are achieved, we will ensure that we have promotion of different offers pages, again, really utilizing that HiltonHeadIsland.org website, that virtual front door for our partners and for our potential visitors to see what is available to them. And we have landing pages that we'll develop for them, ensure that there's relevant offers on there and that there's cooperative efforts in place. And we'll also educate the partners on our meetings and groups incentives. It's really, really tied into a later goal too of really making sure those meetings and group business comes back and how we can work together to ensure that. Grow home and villa occupancy by 4.2% and RevPAR by 5%. Again, we worked very closely with our property management partners and looked at prior year. We looked at how 2020 has performed, and we looked at that forecast or what's on the books going forward to come to these goals. That conversation continues to take place with the property management partners. We're working very hard to develop additional tools in partnership with the partners and to ensure that we have, as it has become so important to our visitors, that home and villa product, we want to make sure that there's regular communications out in the marketplace using our virtual front door of the website to promote that information. Again, going back to that comprehensive meeting and group strategy, as you know, business travel, as we knew it prior to the pandemic, really ceased. And so we have kept a close watch on the meetings and group efforts across the country. We have involved our organization in many platforms and groups that are working towards understanding what the future of business travel looks like. We work very closely with our hoteliers to understand what they're seeing. And we are pulling that together to ensure that when business travel is back, we will be first to market. And we have continued that conversation with our partners that have been to the destination prior for business, and we are continuing to outreach to them and to ensure that they understand that we are open and ready when they're able to travel. And so again, in addition to the communication and outreach, we are ensuring that the platforms in which they need to access for information, for COVID protocols, for space and just information on how they can bring their potential business to this destination is available to them. So that's a reworking of that portion of the website. And again, just understanding if there's a virtual opportunity or in-market opportunity, evaluating it and making sure that it's appropriate for us to be in front of them and making sure we're there. The grow the funding goals, number 5, grow funding by 12% from previous year with industry partners. This is ensuring that our partners understand that there is opportunity both at the state and local level to participate in additional opportunities in terms of cooperative programs. And so we were working closely with them based on prior year funding and partnerships and that 12% is a goal put forward to ensure that we can continue to develop and work closely with our state entity for tourism for this goal here. And again, increase website sessions by 10% and website conversion to partner referrals by 5%. In the end, we want to ensure that we're getting the qualified traffic through that website to shake the hand of our partners. At the end of the day, we want to ensure that that momentum that we had received, even throughout the pandemic, of interest and engagement is there, and it's sustained and it grows. As we mentioned, we really had an opportunity in 2020 to be relevant to that visitor, to showcase our brand. But as we move forward into 21 and into our new fiscal year of 22, it'll be so important to maintain that top of mind relevancy to that visitor as additional destinations open up, both domestically and international. Cruise will come back. There will be more choices for that visitor come late 21, early 22, and that momentum that they will have as they come out of quarantine or COVID protocols, we will need to compete with a noisier marketing environment. And so we want to be relevant, we want to be in front of them, we want to maintain and grow that momentum. It's not the time to pull back, we need to push forward. Thank you for the opportunity to present our fiscal year 22 plan. Myself as well as our team are here to answer any questions, and please let us know if we can answer anything for you.
Thank you, Ms. Pernice. I would like to note during her presentation that Ms. Martin joined us in the meeting, and that's for record purposes only. So what I'd like to do at this point is to give each of our members an opportunity to ask questions of Ms. Pernice, and I'd like to do that on a roll call basis if there's no objection, to keep it fairly clean at this point. So what I'm going to ask at this point is, Mr. Burkhausen, do you have any questions? You're on mute, Jim.
How about now?
Yeah, you're good.
Good. Yeah, I've got a couple. Nicely done, Ariana. It's great to see the research and the careful thought that goes into this. I understand that the goals that are laid out here, fiscal year 2022, so 21 bridging 22, and when you speak of, say, a 10% increase, that would be from whatever the baseline turns out to be on June 30th, 2021?
Exactly. Yes, correct. So we want to ensure that we're building off. But in terms of taking the 10%, just to be clear, we did take into consideration, because 2020 was a unique year, we did take into consideration prior year performance to ensure we weren't having too low of a percentage or too high of a percentage. So in conversation, we looked at multiple years, but then we'll take a 2020 final look.
Okay, which is great. And from my seat in trying to look at these goals, I think I was really glad to see these metrics defined like this, because all the work we go through, this is kind of the end result. For a person in my seat to be able to judge those, though, it would be helpful to have more perspective, like a multi-year look at results, goals, to how did we achieve them. And I'm wondering if in the future maybe we could include, even if it's just a supplemental sheet to the book that's provided on the side, that, hey, here's our progression over the last 3 years. These are the goals that were set. We got them. Or if there's any peer group information of other cities we think we compete with. I mean, how do I know to feel good that 10% is a good number, and should it be 14 or anything over 5 is really great. So if you would share something in the future that gives us some perspective I think put me in a much better position to say, whoa, I feel really good about that.
Absolutely.
But in all, boss, my final question then would be, is there any one of these metrics where you think at the end of 2022, we will not have fully recovered from the COVID dip?
Well, at this point, I think that we're using the research that we have in place, which would be our forecasts and on the books, to give us the best insights, as well as our travel industry metrics from our governing bodies, such as Destinations International and other industry experts from MMGY, to local regional research partners that we have at the College of Charleston. Utilizing those details, we have done the best forecasting of our goals and put them forward. And the other pieces that we've put in place are that with the Marketing Council, that we will meet on a quarterly basis to review the goals that we've put forward for the fiscal year 22 and monitor and manage those numbers or percentages that are in place against actual. And so that we will be able to report and adjust as necessary and move forward or have an explanation. So I think that important measure that we've put in place will be imperative as we move forward and chart through an unprecedented year.
Yeah, okay. Very good, thank you. That's it, Jim.
All right, thank you. Mr. Arnold, do you have any questions?
No, thank you very much for the presentation. I always enjoy seeing what the chamber has to show off and show us what's coming down the pipeline. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Farrell.
I do not. Thank you, Ariana. Thank you so much. Got a lot
Thank
to look
you, Mr.
forward
Farrell.
to.
Mr. Thomas.
Good morning, Ariana. Thank you for the presentation. As always, extremely
morning.
well done.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions and really just some interest in some of the terminology and the goals. But in your first goal, you talk about the visitor profile study and a resident satisfaction survey.
Yes, sir.
Does the does the visitor profile have satisfaction metrics in it? Or is that, pardon?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
No, or is it just really getting a picture of who that visitor is, what their habits are, that type of thing?
Mr. Thomas, it has been in the past a visitor profile study that has really documented the details of what brought them to the destination, what they've done, where they came from, things of that nature. However, we do ask, what have you done, or in terms of excursions, where did you stay? Is this your first time coming? Things of that nature. But we have the opportunity as we move forward to expand those questions, to dig a little deeper. And also as we formulate for the first time going out to the resident, surveys to really look at what those questions are and how we can create synergies.
Okay, and I was going to, then the second part of the question really was, what role do you see resident satisfaction playing in the visitor attraction process and conversion process?
Great question. I think the opportunity is in front of us to, as we've set forth with the 10-year destination management plan, the strategic plan, and the annual plan, hearing the resident as well as the visitor feedback will help in partnership really carve and build that stronger foundation of how we move forward with tourism for the destination. As the destination management organization, we feel confident in the research and efforts that we put forward, but it's always great to have the insights from both sides of tourism, both residents and our visitors, to ensure that path as we move forward, and in work closely with our stakeholders here, such as yourself, the ATAX committee, the town, and that we're complementing and connecting with synergies to things like the R plan and other things that are moving forward as town initiatives.
Thank you. Other question is kind of aimed at the report that was an appendix, the economic impact study on tourism in Hilton Head. And It was interesting to me to see that clearly lodging and food and shopping and golf and boating, biking, they seemed to be the larger winners, if you will, in terms of the benefit of tourism's impact. And then when I was looking further down the list, I looked at the relative impact of performing arts and visual arts as festivals, museums, and tours, that type of thing. And then, you looked at, we had those, and I'm not sure what you call them, but consumer usage demographic segments, the snowbirds and the family and those segments. And I was looking for any indication of the relative size of those segments. I mean, do you have that data? Is that available?
We can absolutely go back to our research partner and look into those and provide that back as a follow-up for you, Mr. Thomas.
Okay, that would be really helpful. Thank you. That's all I have, Jim.
All right, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Ms. Martin?
Sorry about joining a little late. I did get my second COVID shot though, but I have no questions. Just Ariana, thank you for doing such a great, thank you. Thanks for doing such a great job with the metrics and the data. So no questions for me.
All right, thank you. And as acting chair at this point, the question I have is the one I ask every year, and I think it has to go with the resident surveys and stuff. Is when do the numbers become too much for the island? I mean, we have limited infrastructure in the transportation area of the island, and when you're asking for 2.6 million people or above to visit an island of limited size and transportation facilities, is there a point where we've seen the citizenry push back, or are we there yet, or what's the situation?
Thank you, Mr. Fluker. I appreciate that question. And, I think the opportunity is that as a community driven by this tourism as the #1 economic driver, there's a responsibility to ensure 365 days of opportunity with living cohesively alongside our visitors and ensuring the satisfaction or comfort of our residents. And so I think we continue to chart forward in partnership with things such as the town, but also working closely and using that research of the surveys, both on the resident side that we're excited to implement for this year based on our contract, and then our visitor profile study. And I think that we have those conversations of where we're looking at from a numbers perspective, but also just the engagement of how is everyone feeling. So we'll take all that into consideration and continue to work closely with you and the town and to ensure that as we chart forward, it's one of the reasons that we have put forward that 10-year destination management plan for the vision of tourism. Again, we want to be thoughtful in our efforts and make sure that we're charting forward together. But hopefully that.
Well, I was involved, as were a number of local citizens, in the town halls that were involved with that vision plan, that the meetings that were held at the college. Was there any? I don't remember at this point. Was there feedback at that time about numbers? And I know there was infrastructure issues at that point, obviously, but was there any great concern by the local citizens at that point?
The overall sentiment didn't come back that I can recall that was one big main topic. So we will look to revisit those questions as we move forward with the survey and ensure that we're working forward, again, in partnership with these groups, as I noted earlier, to ensure those details are being talked about and that we're working together on them.
That's all I have at this point. Would you like to present a motion at this point?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would. I'd like to make a motion that this committee states that it has reviewed the budget of planned expenditures of the DMO for the period July 1, 21 through June 30th, 2022, and recommends to council that they be approved.
Is there any second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Arnold has second. Zendaya, would you please call the roll on the vote?
Certainly. Ms. Martin,
I approve.
Mr. Berghausen,
Approve?
Mr. Fluker,
Approve?
Mr. Arnold,
Approve.
Mr. Farrell,
Approve.
Mr. Thomas,
Approve.
and I would also like to state for the record that Mr. Brown has recused himself from this vote.
And so noted. It has, it appears to the chair and by record that it's a unanimous vote with one abstention, and therefore the motion passes. At this point, I would then turn the meeting back over to our chairman, Mr. Brown, for the continuation of the meeting.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fluker. Great job, Jim, and great job, team. A proper hello and good morning to everyone. Right now, so what we're going to do is we'll move on to item B of new business, proposed 2021 accommodations out of cycle grants process and calendar. For that, I'd like to give Zendaya a moment to give us some background on that, and then we'll have some discussion. You're on mute.
Rookie move.
I was going to say.
Rookie move. I'm not used to being on this side. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. In December 2020, Town Council voted to award the 2021 ATAX grants with one provision, the surplus of $380,983 to be available to be used at a later date for out-of-cycle grants. At this time, town staff is recommending an out-of-cycle grant submission and calendar for those wishing to apply. The calendar and process for applying is within your packets and also available online. Depending on the submissions received, staff has proposed 3 meeting dates for hearings and the review and recommendation by the ATAC committee. If this process is approved today, submittals will be available to start at 8 a.m. on April 26th, with the deadline ending at 4:30 p.m. on May 7th. All out-of-cycle grant requests will be submitted to myself via email only. This process will include a staff review for applicant eligibility that will be provided to you prior to the hearings as normal. Also, one thing to note, this process does not have a formal application form like the annual grant process, but it's meant to be more of a narrative style submittal to include the requested information to appropriately consider those that are applying. So I take it back to you all. Does anyone have any questions, comments, concerns regarding the out-of-cycle grants process or the calendar?
I do have a few questions, and it's more so I want to just pose it to both you, Zendaya, and then to the committee. So one, like you said, town staff will vet for the Turk eligibility, correct? So it'll be similar to our other spreadsheets that we have. We'll know what we're eligible to grant.
That is correct. But this is only concerning the remaining surplus that town council left, the $380,000. Yes.
Correct. So the spend up to that point. And then in terms of the supplemental application, like you said, it's more of a narrative. Will they still? I guess it will depend on if these are supplemental from people that have already applied or supplemental in the sense of that they have not applied. I think that's something as a group that we needed to discuss, that we could have new applicants versus an extension of an application that was put in by a previous awardant or someone that we did not award to. So that's something that we'll have to think about. What's the committee's thoughts on if there's any guidelines that we should be really concerned about just for ease of review, because there's not going to be like an interview process. We'll correct, Zendaya. There won't be a presentation. We'll just review these and we'll make our recommendations, correct?
Well, no. So you still will have the hearings. We're gonna have, so there are 2 days. Depending on how many applications we receive, we're gonna have 2 days for hearings. The last day, the second day is the review and recommendation by the committee, and then there is a third day if needed. So depending on how many applications we receive, we can kind of sort of be flexible with the amount of time is spent on day one, or if we need a day two or day three.
Right, but in terms of day one, there's not presentations from the applicants.
There will be, yes.
There
There
will
will
be.
be,
Okay.
yes. It'll be the
All right.
same process as we do with our annual. They'll have a presentation. There will be a timeline that's set up that will be provided to you all just as normal. So you know who's applying and you'll have your eligibility spreadsheet, and then we go from there.
Okay. Questions from the committee?
This is Julie. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Quite couple of questions. Can we as a committee decide on if the organizations that we've already granted monies to, can they reapply for more, or can we now just allow it for newer organizations that either have not applied or were not granted any money? Do we have the ability to decide that, or is it open, just free for all?
I will have to check with legal on that. But the idea is to be urgent and emergent needs for those that are applying that didn't come up in the regular grant process cycle. Now, one thing to note is that our regular annual grant process cycle does start in August. So there could have been some things that came up from January to April that are new and emergent needs for these nonprofits. So that's one thing to consider and think about also.
Okay, that's my question.
Thank you, Julie.
My understanding that this would be for grants that would be in this calendar year for 2021. Is that correct? So this would be between June and December of this year. These grants.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Fluker, that is correct. So once awarded, these grants will lapse, or it would be for the remainder of this year. Now, technically, they do have 1 calendar year, so there may be some flexibility behind that when they are awarded and when they actually expire.
And this is a technical point I want to ask at this point. We have at least one applicant from the previous grants, and I don't want to specify who this is, but there was a organization that's missed out on 2 of its events now, and it did not make a 2021 request. So their 2020 grant is going to lapse, my understanding, even though we extended it for 1 year, it was to this year, and then it's going to lapse. And there's about $20,000 in that grant if it hasn't been spent. I don't know that. What would happen with that money then?
And I just want to understand you correctly. So
I'm specifically talking about like the St. Patrick's Day parade group. They did not make an application this year because they were going to use last year's funds. Well, they canceled the parade again this year.
that is correct.
Doesn't that put them in a position where that grant money would lapse then because it's a 2-year situation with the 2020 grant?
Yes, sir, that is correct. That money will lapse and they will need to apply in 2021 for 22 funds. So yes.
Then that money's available.
Yes, but technically that won't be available until December 31st of 2021
All right.
to go back
Go
into
back
the
to the
pot.
state first and then get back down to us, so you know.
Okay,
it's
that was
our
the
money.
procedure I was
Yeah,
asking.
that's it. It's just a longer process. Yes, it'll come back down, but we got to basically send it back up first. So,
Okay.
the joys of politics. So, great questions. In terms of guidelines for Syndea or schedule, are there any additional questions? Hopefully everyone's reviewed that in their packet. Just for the record, if you want, Syndea, do you want to put out there what those proposed dates are now, or do you want to send that out later?
Certainly, I can do that. Let me get to that page.
I think it's part of it was in the agenda packet, is that correct?
It was.
Right.
Yes, sir, it was. So again, the application will open April 26th. That's a Monday at 8 a.m. And I say application because I'm used to saying application, but basically, with the guidelines that we proposed for the narrative style submittal, that can start as early as 8 a.m. on April 26th, and that will close at 4:30 p.m. on Friday, May 7th. And then in between there, May 10th to May 14th, depending on how many applications we get, there will be an internal staff review just as normal. And then the first applicant hearing will be May 19th. I am proposing that would more than likely be a 9 a.m. meeting, typically how we have our meetings. And then the next one is May 26th. That also is an applicant hearing, but I also have that earmarked for a review and recommendation by ATAC in the off chance that we are ready to recommend. And then the final date is May 28th, and that also is earmarked for an applicant hearing and review and recommendation if needed.
Okay, great. Just wanted the general public to have it, and so it's recorded as well. If there's no further questions,
Would each of those meetings be at 9 a.m.? You said that for the 19th. Would we go ahead on the 26th and 28th and also pencil in 9 a.m. on those?
Yes, sir, that is correct. Pencil in 9 a.m., please.
well, good. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Fluker. If there are no further discussion, we'll need to have a vote to approve or deny the out-of-cycle grant process and calendar.
Mr. Chairman, this time for approval of the procedures and the process for the request for the out-of-cycle grant awards as presented by Zendaya and as requested by Town Council.
Is there a second?
I will second.
All right. Any other further discussion? Not hearing any, we'll go for a vote. So, Zendaya, could you call a roll call vote, please?
Certainly. Ms. Martin?
I approve.
Mr. Berghausen?
Approve?
Mr. Fluker?
Approve?
Mr. Arnold?
Approve.
Mr. Farrell?
Approve.
Mr. Thomas? Mr. Tom?
I think we
Oh,
lost.
he did have to leave. He had a prior engagement. He did have to leave, so I will make a note of that. And Mr. Brown?
Approve.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for their time today. We'll move on to number 9, which is just adjournment. Is there any other business that needs to come before the committee by committee members or staff at this time?
Your Honor, I move for adjournment of the meeting.
All righty. Seeing none,
Thank
we will
you.
adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you. See you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.